So we had the latest edition of BMW's GS lineup for a few weeks, and I have to say, we were both pretty impressed. But is it the perfect adventure bike, and the bike that the R1300GS should have been? Okay, so the first thing that I liked about this bike was that it is just typical BMW quality in finish, in components. Everything about it is quality.
Yeah, it's not a cheap bike, but it's a bike that presents with great value for money.
So what is the price of the bike?
Starting price is 21.5 grand, something like that.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of options to bump that price up if you want to spend more money.
And the version that we had did have plenty of options.
Yeah.
I like that tricolour look of this one.
Yeah, but that's the only colour you would get.
Correct, because the other two...
Yeah, well, they've got boring black, snot green, and then the one we had, which is BMW Die Hard tricolour. I think the styling's on point. It looks sharp and refined. The paintwork pops, and I think the attention to detail, typical of the Germans, it's astounding.
So I'm not a die-hard adventure rider, but I did take this bike off-road, and I found the handling wonderful once I got used to the height of the bike.
Yeah.
It was a really confidence-inspiring bike to be riding off-road. Did you take it off-road?
I took it off-road, and same as Ross, like, yeah, I've ridden a dirt bike here and there, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert off-road. I found it good, like, turn the traction control off, one button. Turn the enduro mode on, one button. It just makes sense. And then you feel confident in the dirt, and the throttle steers it well.
And what mode did you have it in on the dirt?
Enduro.
Yeah, I put it in Enduro as well. I didn't bother putting it in Enduro Pro.
I'm not a pro.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that actually did. but in Enduro mode, yeah, like it was, you could feel the back slide, but kept in control.
Yep.
Really, really good.
Yeah, agreed. So that's that familiarity with dirt bikes, and it reminds me of playing around in the dirt on someone else's dirt bike and then dropping it inevitably.
Yeah.
So I found it really fun.
You didn't drop this bike, did you?
No. We're trying to keep that limit to one a year.
One a year. So I really love the engine on this bike.
Yeah.
It's a 900cc parallel twin, about 100 horsepower.
Something like that.
It's not snatchy. In the dirt, it was fantastic. On the highway, it was fantastic. I did commute on it once or twice and it was okay. But power delivery and the power that this bike generates, superb.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to that concept of usable power.
So the brakes were excellent, twin discs on the front, single on the rear. The rear is fantastic, particularly in the dirt. So I found it's a reasonably comfortable tourer.
Yeah.
And I did about 1,000 Ks on it. Cruise control, fantastic. I found it really comfortable to actually stand on the pegs.
Yeah, same here.
And that was a real highlight for me. So when I rode up to Walker and Tamworth, mate, I reckon I was standing for probably 30% of the ride, maybe more. But how did you find standing at your height?
Still fine, yeah.
You weren't sort of reaching too far to the bars?
Not really, no. Still had great control.
The windscreen was functional, but it wasn't adjustable.
Yeah. I mean, the ostentatious electrical adjustable windscreen on the 1300GS was pretty theatrical.
Yeah.
But the windscreen works, it's functional, and it blocked a lot of wind, even for me, and I'm quite a tall rider.
Same for me. The ride that I did, I had a couple of mates on nakeds, and when we got to Walker, their jackets were covered in bugs.
Yeah.
My jacket wasn't. Got a few in the helmet, but the front of the screen was covered in bugs, so it was obviously doing its job.
And talking about touring, there's plenty of room on the back for a back passenger. There's plenty of room on the back for pannier bags. But this is the biggest point I can make about the F900 is that it's narrow. So even when you put the two big pannier bags on the back, it still feels agile and it still can filter through traffic.
So yeah, the bike from the back, it's really narrow, so it does look like a big dirt bike. Yeah. And I love that sort of long bench seat, plenty of room to move about, and I actually had an Oxford Atlas bag, a backpack that I could actually strap down to the seat.
Yeah, a bit more robust than my solution, which is a backpack strapped down with a ratchet strap.
Still works.
Yeah, it still works.
One thing we haven't mentioned is the quick shifter. Now, I struggled with the quick shifter the first time I rode it, and I think I said to you, mate, it's awful. But then once I rode it a bit more, I actually got used to it. I think what I was doing was I was just trying to shift too early.
Yeah.
You got to let the bike rev out a little bit further.
So I was wringing out the gears just a little bit more than you were. So I actually found the quick shifter really good and responsive in the corners as well. So right as you're decelerating into a corner, bang, 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 gears go down and you're in the bend. But I did find, and maybe this is what you experienced, on the dashboard, this is typical BMW, it has a little arrow to tell you when to change up to keep your fuel economy nice and efficient. It doesn't match the character of the bike at all.
And I think that's the problem I had. I was shifting too early because it was telling me to shift. I'm like, okay, I'll shift up. But yeah, it just felt clunky.
Yeah.
As soon as I ignored that and just listened to the engine, no dramas.
Yeah.
The quick shifter was fantastic. So the suspension's excellent and it's adjustable. You got Showa suspension. There's loads of travel and the movement is quite progressive.
Yeah, agreed. I think the front and rear suspension work together as a common theme for this bike, and the rear suspension is super adjustable as well.
And that was good for me because I found I had to adjust that rear suspension to give the bike a little bit more sag, just so I could get my feet flat on the ground. When I did that, it was fine. And it didn't feel like it was bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, so the bike we received had 50/50 tyres.
Hey, happy days.
Yeah, and they were great on and off the road. So this is more of a note about the tyres, but I think the bike handled the tyres in a predictable and comfortable way. It was confidence inspiring on the dirt. It was confidence inspiring on the road. So thumbs up for 50/50s. And sometimes they're a bit hit and miss, but I loved them. What did you think?
Yeah, no. Once I got used to the bike, riding with those 50/50 tyres on the road was no issue at all. A little bit loud on the freeway, but in terms of handling and it's really hooking into corners, no dramas whatsoever. And on the dirt, first rate. So it's got 5 different rider modes: Rain, Road, Dynamic, Enduro, and Enduro Pro. Road and Dynamic is basically where I left it most of the time, except when I was on the dirt and I put it in Enduro. I thought they had really different characteristics, particularly Dynamic, and that's when I've ridden other bikes with that dynamic mode, other BMWs with that dynamic mode, that's generally what I leave it in.
Yeah.
For me, it's just the most fun.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, although I did find that if you wanted to just relax on the ride home from work, which I often did with this bike because I was riding it as much as I could, road feels like a completely different bike. And that's good because it means that you're paying, two for the price of one with this bike.
Okay, so thumbs down. There's a few things, but the main thing for me was the size of that fuel tank, particularly if you're going to be taking it on tour.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was constantly filling up. Now, I had a couple of mates on GS 1250s, and I had a mate on a Z900 RS and another guy on an R18 and another one on a Harley. Mate, the Z900 RS is renowned for not being very good on fuel and having a small fuel tank. I think Ben and I were filling up just as often as each other on this thing. So that was a bit of a pain, having to constantly fill up. The boys on the GS 1250s, they were filling up every second sort of service station. But man, we were constantly looking for service stations to try and fill up at. So typical for me, I had serious issues with the BMW app, but it was better than the last time I used it. So last time I used it, I couldn't set waypoints. This time I could.
Cool.
But it's just not an intuitive app. So biggest problem I had was the phone holder.
Yeah.
So I, at one point, put my phone in and it fell out.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was literally riding along. I was looking at it going, there's the map. Yeah, cool. Looked away, came back and my phone's gone. I'm like, where the hell's my phone gone?
It's a BMW phone dropper.
It is a BMW phone dropper. Luckily, my phone just wedged itself in the front of the bike. I thought it had fallen down and smashed. So we stopped and jumped off and had a look. And then I sort of got off the bike and had a look and found it. But yeah, and that just sort of ruined it for me. I didn't put my phone back in that holder for the rest of the trip. And that was on the first morning.
Should have used a Beeline. Available at bikeatalk.com.au.
Should have used a Beeline.
I have a weird complaint, and most people that buy GSs probably will never experience this, but I found the mudguard really hard to clean. It's very close to the wheel, and I'm trying to spray a hose in there, I couldn't get access, and I tried to get a sponge in there, and I couldn't get access. And...
Is that because I gave it to you completely covered in mud?
Oh, man, it's just brutal. Like, I thought the color was brown, because every single square inch is covered in dirt.
So I took it off-road near my place just to get some shots, and I saw some puddles. I went, oh yeah, you can't get shots of it without it looking dirty.
Yeah.
So straight through the puddles. But man, there was mud everywhere on that thing, and then I didn't have time to clean it.
Yeah.
So I left that for you.
Dr. Gurney was operating on that bike, let's just say. So I commuted on this bike a lot. I was trying to ride it as much as possible. I didn't want to give it back. but I did find that lane filtering, typical of a flat bar adventure bike, the bars are wide, it's hard to filter. There's a lot of Ford Ranger mirrors that are very tantalizing to take out, but I had to behave myself. But let's be honest, the rest of the bike's narrow. It's a lot easier to filter than the 1300GS.
And it's also really tall, so you're sitting up nice and high.
Yeah. Yeah, Corollas, they just slide right underneath. It's easy.
Now, my main issue with this bike was the height. Now, I'm only 5'9". You probably didn't have the issue at all because you're
6'5".
6'5".
This was a bike made for me.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
This is the big problem I have with it, and it's the problem that most people my height are going to have with it. When I first jumped on it, I'm on tippy toes, and I just felt a little bit nervous the first time I took it off road, a little bit tentative.
Yeah.
Just really was careful where I was pulling up. As soon as I got used to it, it was fine, but it was just that first time you jump on it, you're like, oh man, it's a really tall bike, and I think that would actually stop a few people from buying it.
Okay, so finally, GRIN factor. Now, I used to work at a BMW dealership. At the time, the F900GS was the new F-Series bike to have, and it sucked. And I thought that they'd made it intentionally bad to make the R1250GS look like a better bike. So when the F900 came into my possession, I thought it was going to suck, but I fell in love. It's got great distinct power, great gearing, great suspension, great brakes, and it's fun. I mean, this is something that the BMW engineers have tried and failed to do for a long time, thanks to their zero joyfulness policy. So all in all, a fantastic bike. You know what really frustrates me though, is that it's great value, it's great power, but no matter how good it is, no matter how practical it is, no matter how great of an alternative it is, this BMW badge will always associate it with the phrase, oh, you couldn't afford a 1300GS, eh?
Which is a real shame.
Yeah, and I think, imagine if any other manufacturer made this bike, it would be the king. It would be the adventure bike to have, and that just frustrates me. Because personally, I'd give this bike a 9 any day of the week.
Okay, so for me, I didn't think I was going to like it either.
Yeah.
So I've got a mate who's got an F800. It's not a GS, but a standard F800, and I've ridden that a couple of times, and I hate it. It's top heavy, and I just don't like the bike. Yeah. So I felt this was going to be the same, but I tried to keep an open mind. So on my road trip, first day, got used to the bike, got into our destination, and the boy said, "How is it?" And I went, "Yeah, it's all right. Like, I'm getting used to it." Second day, fell in love. As soon as we hit some dirt roads, mate, the thing just came alive.
Yeah.
And I got more confident on it. And it's a really confidence-inspiring bike to ride, despite the height. Now, that for me is the only apart from the app, forget that, and the phone holder. The main issue is the height for me. So for me, I'm only going to give it an 8, but that's purely because it's just a little bit too tall. So great bike. If you're taller than me, then you're going to absolutely love it. So we both loved the F900GS, but check out this playlist over here of other adventure bikes that we've reviewed.